Hi, I'm Laura.
And I'm Joe.
And this is CrimeDivers.
October is known as the month when the veil between the spirit world and the earthly realm are their thinnest. It is the best time to commune with the dead. The October full moon and Samhain are when the veil is at its thinnest. You can literally feel the change in energy in the air. If you sense a presence behind you, it's not your imagination.
Ooh. Welcome to today's episode, everybody. Happy Halloween!
Happy Halloween!
Yay!
It's officially, well, it's been spooky season for a while now,
Yes.
but it's officially...
It is Halloween.
And welcome to our second bonus episode of the weekend.
Yes. I'm looking forward to this one.
Oh yeah, well, I stuck with the theme of yesterday, and we're still in Scotland. We're actually in Edinburgh, and I've got two separate things to tell you about, which are both in Edinburgh.
Mm-hmm.
So, are you ready to dive in?
I am. What is it? Do we have a title?
Well, no, I'm just going to tell you about
okay.
the two spooky places.
Oh, okay.
So,
Fair enough.
Are you ready to dive in?
I am ready to dive in. Scare me.
Well, I doubt I'm going to scare you, but because there's more history behind where the ghosts come from, you know what I mean?
Yeah, cool.
So, the first thing I'm going to tell you about is Greyfriars Kirkyard.
I was going to say Greyfriars Bobby there.
Well, Greyfriars Bobby will come into it, but you're jumping the gun.
Sorry.
So, Greyfriars Kirkyard.
I've been in there.
Yeah, I know you have.
I've been on a tour in there.
I know you have, and so does probably most people who listened to last year's episode, the Halloween one, because you mentioned it as well, and nothing exciting happened to you. So
no, it wasn't. But the most exciting thing was seeing the names of the tombstones.
Yeah, which we'll get to as well.
Which I'll not tell you.
Right. So So for anybody who doesn't know, because we're in Scotland, we sometimes have different names for things, and a kirkyard is a cemetery. The Greyfriars Kirkyard is a cemetery. So a kirk in Scotland is a church. Mm-hmm. So basically it translates to Greyfriars Churchyard, but it's called Kirkyard because... Yeah. Churches in Scotland are called kirks.
Yeah.
So Greyfriars Kirkyard is owned by the City of Edinburgh Council, and it's open 24 hours a day. So if you're thinking of visiting Edinburgh, I would suggest going for a visit. I haven't been myself, but Laura has been, and I took a sort of virtual tour.
Oh, how did you do a virtual tour?
Yeah, well, you just sort of, on your website, you can sort of have a look about, and it looks quite nice.
I mean, if you like your spooky stuff, it's definitely worth going in at night time. Obviously, you can't walk through it during the day,
Yeah.
but if you're into the spooky, you could take a tour yourself, or you could just walk through it.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you a bit about its history.
Okay.
So, firstly, Greyfriars Bobby, which Laura's already mentioned, is probably the most famous story connected to Greyfriars Kirkyard. So the story goes that Bobby was a dog. His breed was a Skye Terrier. So he was born on the 4th of May in 1855, and he belonged to a man called John Gray. John worked as a night watchman for the Edinburgh City Police, and Bobby would follow John whilst he was at work. And according to records, policemen were obliged to have watchdogs with them. I didn't know that, did you?
No, I don't know.
No. So, Bobby was John's
watchdog.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, John Gray died of tuberculosis on the 15th of February 1858, and he was buried in Greyfriars Kirkyard. So Bobby, the dog, is said to have sat by his master's grave for 14 years until he died on the 14th of January 1872 when he was 16. He lived to 16.
Wow.
What a good age,
That's
eh?
a good age for a dog.
And he died from cancer of the jaw.
Oh,
Poor wee soul.
Poor wee Bobby.
Yeah. So, in 1867, the Lord Provost of Edinburgh, who was also a director of the SSPCA, which is the Scottish Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, paid for Bobby's dog licence and gave him a collar so that he wouldn't be taken away by the dog catcher.
Oh.
So the Lord Provost would also take him food and water, and Bobby's collar is now in the Museum of Edinburgh.
Oh, I was just there the other day and
Did you see it?
did not see that.
Is it that same Is that the Museum of Edinburgh?
Oh, maybe not, because I mean, this is like the National Museum.
Oh, it might be a different
Maybe
museum then. I don't know.
Oh.
So, Bobby was buried just outside the Greyfriars Kirkyard, and a bronze life-size statue was erected a year after he died and is now a major city tourist attraction.
Yeah.
It's located on the corner of Candlemaker Row and George IV Bridge, and it's Edinburgh's smallest listed building. So it's actually classed as a listed building. I never knew that.
So it can never been taken down.
Nah. So if you do go to Edinburgh, you should definitely go and see Bobby and give him a wee pat on the nose.
Oh well, no, they ask you not to do that now.
Do they?
Because people have done that. It's rubbed like the brass or whatever on it. So I'm sure there was a thing that they were asking people not to do that anymore.
Oh, because I thought was it not supposed to be good luck or something like that?
So, but I'm sure you're not meant to do it anymore.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure people probably still do it because
still do.
Because I mean, there's a few like bars and clubs around there that people go to, so there's many drunk people around. So I mean, that maybe does, but I'm sure there was something about you shouldn't do it because it was rubbing away the coating of it and stuff.
It's definitely worth going to see him though.
Yeah, get a wee photo. Yeah.
So that, as I said, that's the most sort of famous story that comes. As I said, we haven't got to the ghosty stuff yet. We're just at the history at the moment. Mm-hmm. So there's a guy called this. I'm going to tell you about William McGonagall. This guy was known as one of the worst poets in Scotland. His most famous work is called The Tay Bridge Disaster, which was based on a horrific rail crash by Dundee.
Oh, I think I know that poem. I vaguely remember doing that at school.
Do you? Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to tell you. So,
yeah, go on.
Well, in a minute, I'm going to shit.
Sorry.
So it was based on a horrific rail crash by Dundee, which is where he was from. And just to show how rubbish he was, the end of this poem goes, so I don't have the whole of the poem, but I've got I don't know why I've only got the end of it, but the end of it is crap. O ill-fated bridge of the silvery Tay, I now must conclude my lay by telling the world, fearlessly without the least dismay, that your central girders would not have given way. At least many sensible men do say, had they been supported on each side with buttresses, at least many sensible men confesses, for the stronger our houses do build, the less chance we have of being killed. And a buttress, just in case you're wondering, is a structure of stone or brick built against a wall to strength or supporting it. So basically saying if it was a bit stronger, the rail crash wouldn't have happened. And he's blaming whoever built the bridge for the accident.
Right.
But which might be true, but
there must be more to that poem. Obviously there is, because that's the last bit, but I'm sure I remember.
Well, it was absolute shit, and I just think it's bad taste writing a poem blaming people for an accident when people have died in this accident. So it's like really bad taste.
Yeah.
So yeah, no wonder he was the worst poet in Scotland.
Yeah.
And he didn't make any real money from any of his other poems either. So I'm not actually quite sure why he was known as a poet, because he was absolute shit. But anyway,
I think we got that.
But anyway, he was buried in the kirkyard in an unmarked grave, though an inscribed slab was later installed in 1999. And the best bit, calling all you Harry Potter fans. Yes, that would be me.
So it says you with your Quidditch t-shirt on.
Oh yeah, actually. Yes, I've got a Harry Potter t-shirt on. So anyone who knows the Harry Potter stories will know who Tom Riddle is. So for anyone who doesn't know, that's the baddie. Lord Voldemort, that's his birth name. Mm-hmm. I'm sure most people, even if they don't know Harry Potter, it's the baddie in Harry Potter anyway. Yeah. So the real Tom Riddle died in 1806 and was buried in Greyfriars Kirkyard. So as most people know, J.K. Rowling, the author, lived in Edinburgh, and the cemetery actually inspired a few character names. So the names that she found in the cemetery were Moody. There's a character called Alistair or Mad Eye Moody. He's an aura. Scrimger. Who's that? Do you know who that is? I'm going to test on your Harry Potter knowledge.
Scrimger. Is that not somebody from the Order of the Phoenix?
He was the Minister of Magic.
Oh, Minister of Magic, okay.
Yeah, his name was Rufus Scrimger. He was the Minister for Magic. Crookshanks.
He was a cat.
Yeah, Hermione's cat was called Crookshanks. Potter. Don't really need to explain that one. And McGonagall.
Was Professor McGonagall.
Yeah, there's Professor McGonagall in school, but all the spellings are different.
Oh, right, okay.
So they're all the same names, but they're spelled in different ways.
Right.
But it's just like really interesting to know that some of the Harry Potter characters came from that graveyard. They were actually real people.
I remember going on the tour, and obviously we walked past the graves where they worked. I think they're all quite close together, the graves.
Are they?
and we obviously, the tour guide was telling us the story of J.K. Rowling and how she came across him, and there's I don't know if some kind of, I don't know if it's like a school or something, some big building that I think she maybe went to as well, or something like that. But and then obviously the cafe's quite nearby where she used to write and stuff. So yeah, we've got a wee history lesson about that.
And also, the entire kirkyard is apparently the inspiration behind the graveyard where Harry Potter's parents are buried. The one in Godric's Hollow. So if you watch the film, which would be either the second to last or the last, I don't know which, because it's in 2 parts. So one of those films, they go to Godric's Hollow. So it's not actually Greyfriars, but that's what inspired that. Yeah. So there you go, there's your... So now we've got time for some ghostly stuff. But you might be surprised to learn that there's only one supernatural being in Greyfriars Kirkyard. Like, from stories I've heard about, I thought there was tons. I was actually quite disappointed because I was like, where's all the ghosts?
Yeah.
I just got the impression that there was loads.
Because that's, if I say I did this tour quite a few years ago now, and I vaguely remember one story, but...
Well, I think there only is one story.
Yeah, but I don't know if, well, you're going to tell me if it is that or not, but I'm trying to think what else we would have been talking about going around that graveyard, because it must have been more. Obviously the Harry Potter thing was one of them, but it must have been more.
Greyfriars Bobby.
Yeah, but it must have been a few other things, maybe, I don't know. But,
well, I'll tell you what I know.
Yes. See if it's what I know.
So there's an area in the kirkyard known as the Covenanters' Prison.
Yes, the prison.
Yes. And it's behind high walls and locked gates.
Yes.
And there's a small tomb in that area, and it's known as the Black Mausoleum.
Yeah, that's the one. I remember now.
And there have been several attacks on people by the Mackenzie poltergeist.
Yes. Oh my god, I'm remembering. Like, I'm not just saying it because but I'm recalling this now. That is right, yeah.
So, this is supposedly the restless spirit of George Mackenzie. He was called Sir George Mackenzie of Rosehaw. He was a lawyer, Lord Advocate and writer who was born around 1636 and died on the 8th of May 1691. However, he's more commonly known as Bloody Mackenzie, and he earned that nickname due to his treatment of the Covenanters. So the Covenanters, because I didn't know what they were, as usual, I have to look things up. So they were a Scottish Presbyterian group that began in the 17th century in order to oppose the interference by the king in the affairs of the Scottish Presbyterian Church. So on the 28th of February 1638 at Greyfriars, several members of the community signed an oath called the National Covenant, which stated that the people will defend their religion against innovations, especially ones that might lead to Roman Catholicism. Catholicism, that's it. It's Catholicism.
Right. Glad you knew that, because I didn't.
Yes, Catholicism, and the reason why I know that is because there's a lot of it in my next episode.
Okay, fair enough.
So, anyway, so within a few days, the people of Edinburgh signed it, and copies were sent throughout Scotland. What followed was a period of unrest that eventually led to the English Civil War. So basically, to save us even more of a history lesson, because obviously I'll give you a little bit there, I'm going to cut a long story short. So the Civil War lasted for 9 years, and Charles II wanted support from the Scots, so he signed the National Covenant and he was proclaimed King of Scots in 1651. However, once he became king, he backed out of the agreement. What a wanker.
So basically he did that just so he could become king.
Yeah, basically. So he removed their rights to practice their religion and started persecuting them. So obviously they fought back. So there was a battle, the Battle of Bothwell Bridge in 1679, and the Covenants were defeated, and 1,200 prisoners were transported to Edinburgh. About 400 of them were held at Greyfriars Kirkyard in the area that later became Covenanters Prison. It's a hard word, that. And this is where George Mackenzie came into play. So he basically mistreated the prisoners. Like, they barely got enough food and they were often exposed to the elements. Apparently the conditions were so bad that it was described as being like a concentration camp. Under Mackenzie's orders, some of the men were tried and executed. Others were sent off as slaves, while others had the chance to swear an oath of loyalty to the new king. In the end, about 150 men died and were buried at the Covenanters' prison. It was his treatment of these men that got Mackenzie his nickname, Bloody Mackenzie.
Mm-hmm.
And when he died, he was buried in the Black Mausoleum, which is near the graves of the men that he was responsible of killing.
Oh, wow.
You would have thought he'd be buried like near them, eh?
No.
So, the first recorded sighting of this poltergeist, Bloody Mackenzie, was in 1998. So
wow.
that is fairly recent.
I know. It's not that long ago, I suppose.
And since then, there has been hundreds of documented attacks. So I'm sure you're wondering why it took so long for the poltergeist to appear, since Mackenzie died in 1691.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a reason for that.
Okay.
So in 1998, a homeless man broke into the tomb looking for shelter. And as he was violating the tomb, he accidentally uncovered unidentified skeletal remains that were believed to be plague victims.
Mm.
So the homeless man ran away screaming. He was never heard of again.
Mm-hmm.
But the day after the man broke in, 2 women visiting the tomb became the first victims of the Mackenzie poltergeist. One was pushed to the ground and he strangled the other so hard that bruises were left on her neck.
Oh, wow.
And then one day in 2004, 2 teenage boys broke into the tomb and cut the head of Mackenzie's corpse. They cut it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't think you could cut it, like, because it was a skeleton. So,
Aye, but
they
okay.
took the head off.
Right.
And they then kicked it around like a football and performed sex acts on it. So, obviously, this violation made Mackenzie furious, and that's what caused the area to be cursed.
Wow.
So, out of all these attacks, 140 of them have caused the witness to collapse. That's how bad the attacks are by the poltergeist.
Well, I didn't get any of that when I was there.
I could become a tour guide, eh?
Good,
So over the years, there have been hundreds of reports of hot and cold spots. People walking through the kirkyard have found cuts and bruises on their bodies, under their clothes as well as on bare skin. Witnesses have also seen an unidentified shape and heard knocking noises in the tomb and under the ground. There's also been sightings of a white figure and unexplained smells. Quite often, dead animals have been found in front of the Black Mausoleum, but there's no physical wounds on them, so
How they died.
yeah, how they died. It's not like they've been attacked or
Yeah.
you know.
Aye.
So yeah, that's strange. And people have also complained about their hair being pulled and being hit on the arms and legs. A couple of people have even claimed to be possessed. The area has been exorcised twice, but both times unsuccessfully. So there's no getting rid of this poltergeist.
Well, obviously, was he showing his face or showing his presence? Sorry, when I was there.
Well, maybe it was.
On an off night.
Maybe it was just having a wee break. Maybe you just weren't bothering them.
Mm.
So there are actually houses right next to the graveyard. Like, there's a guy that wrote a book about the graveyard. And he described it as he lived in the graveyard. But I looked at pictures and it looks like it's like just overlooking the graveyard.
That's what this building. I can't remember what, because when we
Was it not a block of flats then?
It could do. I don't know, but I just remember that the guy mentioned about the building that was there, and I can't for the life of me think what the building was, like what it had in it. So I don't know.
Well, from what as I said, I looked at online.
That's literally just like overlooking the graveyard.
Yeah, there's a block of flats that to me it looks like
It
it's
might be
overlooking.
flats now. I don't know if it was, but I mean I don't know. I mean maybe it was. I don't know. But I just know that there's a building there
Yeah.
that overlooks the graveyard.
Well, apparently the rent's really cheap. So poltergeist activity has been reported in 4 different houses around the graveyard, and the area has been plagued with fires with no official causes of the fires being established. How weird. So there you go. So that is Greyfriars Kirkyard. So, and the Bloody Mackenzie or Mackenzie poltergeist, whatever you want to call them. So next we are going to head on over to Mary King's Close. And yes, you've been there as well.
I have.
And funnily enough, you had no strange experience.
No, I didn't.
Because I did briefly touch on Mary King's Close on last year's Halloween episode.
Yeah.
And you did say that, because I was like, yeah, share your stories. And you're like,
Yeah.
It felt a bit eerie.
Yeah. Yeah, that was it, wasn't it? Yeah,
So
I've never encountered all the tours that I've done. I've certainly never encountered anything that I would call unusual. It's just dark and creepy and like, ooh, but nothing.
maybe you're not susceptible to it. Is that the words? Like maybe you've not got an open enough mind or something, so they don't appear to you.
Yeah, maybe.
I have no idea.
Or I don't know.
I don't know. I'd be like, just don't fucking appear to me. Just don't. So they'd be like, Fuck her.
Aye.
She's not interested.
She's no fun.
Nah.
Oh, maybe she is fun. She'd scare her.
I forgot to say at the start of the episode that I'd had a couple of... Oh, I'll do it at the end. So remember me at the end, I've got a couple of weird things that have happened recently.
Right, okay.
Not spooky, just a bit weird.
Right, okay.
Okay, so, Mary King's Close. So first of all, I'm going to explain what a close is because...
Again, we're in Scotland. We have different names
yes, we have different names for things. So the old town of Edinburgh consisted originally of the main street, which is the Royal Mile.
Uh-huh.
So this street runs down a slope from Edinburgh Castle to Holyrood Palace. And a number of small alleyways led off the main street to the north and south. So some of these led to open courtyards, so they were called courts. Mm-hmm. Others were wide enough for a horse and cart, and they were called wynds. Mm-hmm. But most of these alleyways are called closes because they lead to private property where people live and are gated and closed to the public. So basically, it's just an alleyway.
But it's like a close, because it's like a...
Like, come on, you explain.
Well, there's like maybe no exit. It's like you go in one way and there's like a close and then you'd have to come back out that way.
Yeah, like, because it leads to private property.
Yeah, because if you're going in an alleyway, it's normally got a start and an end.
Yeah, but it kind of looks like an alleyway, doesn't it? Like, because it's quite narrow and like you've got the houses on either side.
Yeah. But it's like, it kind of leads you to like a dead end, doesn't it?
I think so.
And then you'd have to come back out the way you came in, basically. Anyway.
Back in the day, these narrow alleyways could have risen up, like the houses on either side, could have risen up to 14 or 15 stories high. That is high. And the rich people would live at the top and the poor people would live at the bottom.
Oh, I thought it would be the other way around.
Well, no. Because the higher up you were, the further you were away from the smelly street. Because you've got sewage and everyone all running down the street and that. Yes. So if you think about it, it's like a sort of penthouse. You know what I mean? Like the rich people are on the top, so the poor people are down beside the smelly sewage streets.
And all the rats and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's why it works out like that.
Right, okay.
So Mary King's Close is now underground. So in the 18th century, the Lord Provost commissioned the construction of the Royal Exchange for merchants and traders. To highlight how important this building was, it was decided that the perfect location would be the Royal Mile's middle point, which was basically on top of Mary King's Close. Mm-hmm. So to save time and money, it was decided to build upon 4 pre-existing closes. So you've got Mary King's Close, Stuart's Close, Pearson's Close, and Allen's Close. So rather than demolishing them, they just...
built on top of them.
Yeah, built on top of them. So they constructed an even foundation at the same level as the Royal Mile, and they basically just knocked off a few stories of the buildings, and they used the first stories of the closes as the substructure of the Royal Exchange building. So basically, it's like Mary King's Close is like under that under the exchange.
I believe, if I remember rightly, that's where you start the tour for Mary King's Close. You start at the Royal Exchange place,
which is now the City Chambers.
Yeah.
So Mary King's Close is now under what is now the City Chambers, which I don't even know what that. I looked at it. I was like, I think it's just used as a meeting place for like council.
Yeah.
Council meetings and stuff.
That's basically what it is.
Because I was like, actually, I know what a Royal Exchange is, but what's a City Chambers?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's just like meetings for the council and that.
But yeah, that's normally where the tour obviously starts because that's
So before telling you about Mary King's Close, now I'll tell you what is known about Mary King. So there's not that much known about her, but you know, because it was like I don't know for a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what I do know. So Mary was born at the end of the 16th century in Edinburgh. She married a guy called Thomas Nimmo in 1616, but she never took his surname. I'm like, go you. You, independence and all that. Keep your own name.
Girl power back then.
Oh, she's definitely girl power, like. And they had 4 children together. So unfortunately, in 1629, Thomas died, leaving Mary to bring up the children by herself. But in Thomas's will, he left Mary a title naming her a burgess. Now, of course, had to look it up. Don't know what that is. No. So this title, the burgess, it basically gave Mary a seat on Edinburgh Council, granting her voting rights. So considering women didn't achieve the same voting rights as men until 1928, this put Mary at 300 years ahead of her time.
Wow.
Told you she was a badass.
Wow,
yeah.
Wow.
I also read that a Burgess was a merchant given trading rights within the borough. So as Mary was a merchant, it made sense for her to move to Mary King's Close. Of course, it wasn't Mary King's Close when she moved there.
But it was named after her later.
It was actually called Alexander King's Close. He wasn't related to Mary. It's just a coincidence that they had the same name. And I'll tell you about naming closes in a minute. So Mary moved to the Close as it was the second largest street in Edinburgh, the first being the Royal Mile. And the Close was used as a market. So Mary moved her and her family to the Close in 1635, and she bought 2 properties, her house and her stall for the market. She sold clothes and cloth, and because she had taste for fine wines and imported ceramics, she didn't end up with very much money. Because whatever she made, she just spent it. Yeah. But throughout history, Closes, so we can tell you about how they got named. Throughout history, Closes were named after businesses, activities and essential people. For instance, Flesh Market Close was the city's abattoir.
Okay. Flesh Market Close.
There's actually, I've got a book, I think, it's Flesh Market Close, because it's, you know Inspector Rebus?
Oh, yeah.
That one of his books is Flesh Market. But I'd never actually thought about where that name came from.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's the abattoir.
Right, lovely.
And Anchor Close, that was named after a tavern on the same street. So Alexander King received recognition with a close name for his prominent work as a lawyer in the city. So, but unfortunately, Mary, she didn't get to see her name recognised, so it wasn't called Mary King's Close until years after her death.
What a shame for Alexander, though, who lost his...
Well, I don't know why he lost it. Like,
yeah, lost his name and rights to the Close.
Don't know. But Mary died in 1644. In her will, she left 2 gold rings, 6 silver spoons, a wooden bench, 3 buffet stools, 2 pairs of tongs, a variety of fire irons, 2 tinned chamber pots, and wine and beer, and all of that. So, I mean, it just basically just showed that she liked to buy the finer things of life, because, like, that's not the normal things that people would be leaving in their will.
No.
Mary's collection of objects and her achieving a street name demonstrates the life of an extraordinary woman, breaking the gender barriers and leaving behind a powerful legacy. So she was some woman, like.
But then obviously it didn't go much further, considering, like you say, it was 300 years before women then ended up having a vote. So what happened in that 300 years? It didn't progress.
She just got it for herself.
Exactly.
So she's like, fuck everybody else, I don't care, I've got my fucking title, I can vote.
Yeah.
So Mary died the year before the bubonic plague hit. As there was no proper sewer system, tenants just chucked their waste out of the water.
Gardaloo!
You didn't even notice that I made a mistake there.
No.
I said, tenants just chucked their waste out of the water.
Oh, they're out the window.
Yeah, that'll be it.
Gardaloo!
Yeah, they chucked their waste out of the window at the streets below, shouting Gardaloo. You could have waited. That was the warning that they would give so that you didn't get hit with shit.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah. So if you heard somebody shouting Gardaloo, run like fuck.
Yeah, get out of the way.
So rats ran wild in the Close, carrying fleas with them. So when these fleas became infected with the bubonic plague, well, that wasn't great for the residents of the Close. So there's a myth that in an effort to quarantine the victims, Edinburgh city officials sealed off the Close, leaving 600 inhabitants to die. And I actually thought that's what happened, did you? Or did you not really know?
I don't really remember.
I thought they'd sealed it off and left them to die.
Well, I thought they had sealed it off.
Yeah, but like to leaving all the people with the plague to die.
Maybe. Vaguely. I don't know. Kind of.
Well, according to what I read, in reality, the plague victims were well cared for. So the council managed the outbreak quite well. Families fit enough to be moved were taken elsewhere, and those who were too ill put out white flags in their windows to let people know not to come near them. So, like, food and coal were delivered to their doorsteps.
Yeah.
So the plague doctor just did that mask.
Oh,
hate that.
That's a scary man.
Yeah.
That's the long sort of nose, isn't it?
Yeah, because they put like herbs in that, because the smell. So they had that's why they had the mask, because the smell of the people with disease.
Right.
So they put like herbs or whatever to make it smell nice. So that
right.
did you not know that? That's why it was like that.
I didn't know that. No.
And I knew that without even reading, because I never wrote that down. So the plague doctor George Ray came into town, and to save a victim, he would slice off the top of the victim's sore and jam a red hot poker into the wound to cauterise it.
Oh, okay.
That was nice, eh?
Ugh.
And although it sounds horrendous, it did work and it saved lives. So after the plague passed, Tenants continued to live in Mary King's Close right up until the last resident left in 1902. The last resident to leave Mary King's Close was a guy called Andrew Chesney. He was ordered to leave because the Royal Exchange was expanding. So it was closed for just over 100 years, and it was reopened to the public in 2003. Mm-hmm. So not that long ago, like 20 years, less than 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it's now a tourist attraction called the Real Mary King's Close. Mm-hmm. So let's get the paranormal stuff. Had to give you a bit of history so that you knew what it was.
Yeah.
So the first reported sighting actually dates back to around 1685 and involves the Coulthart family. This family moved into Mary King's Close after the plague, and a wee while later, Thomas Coulthart experienced apparitions and energies in the close. They saw disembodied limbs, a bodiless phantom of a child, that just sounds horrendous, and the ghost of a gruesome-looking dog that would curl up on a chair.
Oh, okay.
So I read a story about the Coulthart, so I'm just going to read it straight from the website, which is creepyghoststories.com. Mr. Thomas Coulthart and his beautiful wife moved into the close and brought a maid with them. Unfortunately, the maid was freaked out by the scary stories the neighbours told of hauntings and of death and refused to work there any longer and left the family. One Sunday afternoon, Mrs. Coulthart, I find that awfully hard to say for some reason, I don't know why. Mrs. Coulthart was sitting and reading her Bible passages, waiting for her husband to come home when a grey, bearded old man's head, just his head, appeared in front of her.
Oh God, okay.
Understandably, she fainted, and her husband found her passed out when he came home. She tried to tell him what she saw, but he just put it down to his hysteria and blew it off.
Right.
Apparently the spirits didn't appreciate it because that night, as they lay in bed, the ghost appeared in front of them both. They prayed and that particular ghost went away, but not for long. It came back and brought friends to confront Mr. Coulthart all throughout the night. One of the spirits, appearing as only an arm, wanted to introduce themselves and tried to shake Mr. Coulthart's hand.
Okay.
Can you imagine, like, there's just this arm, like, trying to shake hands with you? Mr. Coulthart freaked out and demanded to know why the ghosts were bothering them. They never got an answer, but a cat and dog spirit came to join the party. Finally, too afraid to think of anything else, the couple began to pray in earnest for deliverance. Suddenly, they both heard a loud and terrifying groan, and the ghosts left, never to bother the Coultharts again, who lived the rest of their days happily in the close.
Okay then.
So the next residents, they weren't so resilient, however. When visited by the head of the grey man, they just ran out the house and never came back.
Don't blame them.
I think I'd be the same. Since then, there have been many sightings and experiences, such as a worried man who wanders around the close, a woman in black, because, you know, there's always...
Woman in black, yeah.
And a little girl called Annie, who I'll tell you about later. So there have been numerous paranormal investigations in the close, and even the TV show Most Haunted did an episode on it.
Did you watch that one?
Nope. Do you know what it is? I used to love watching Most Haunted, and I think me and you actually sometimes used to watch it together. But then I found out that they tricked Derek O'Cora into they tried to prove that he was a fake.
Yeah.
And I always liked Derek O'Cora.
Oh, I liked him.
So and I kind of thought, well, I don't really care whether he's fake or not. I just liked the programme, and it was
to be honest, I thought he kind of made the programme a bit, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Yvette
Fielding.
Yeah, I mean, obviously she did a good job as well, but I think he definitely, you know, for the connection between the spirits and stuff, I mean, I liked him. I mean... Yeah,
I did as well, but apparently her and the guy who was on it, there's always like a skeptic that was on it, I can't remember what his name was, but apparently him and Yvette Fielding set Derek up to kind of expose him as a fake.
Right.
So ever since then, I'm like, it just gives a different feel now. Because when I watched it before, I always assumed that they were friendly.
They were all friends and stuff. But
no. Anyway, so the Chesney house. Remember, I said they were the last family to leave. The Chesney house apparently has a strong presence. Paranormal investigators have felt a man who was not well liked within his community, and he wasn't best pleased to have people in his house. They used an EVP, which is an electronic voice phenomenon. Phenomenon. That's it. Phenomenon. And through it, they heard it's Chesney. as well as the name Robert and get the fuck out. that would be me if I was a ghost. Get the fuck out of my house.
Yeah, fuck off.
So investigators get a sense of how busy the street must have been because like they just got a feeling like people walking up and down the close like all times a day. Anytime investigators have been in,
right, okay.
you know, they can just feel like loads of hustle and
Presence,
bustle.
yeah.
And so there's a famous Japanese psychic called Eiko Gibbo. Now I apologise if I got that wrong because it's Japanese and you know I could be wrong. But she visited Mary King's Close whilst making a film about the haunted places of Britain. So when it came to stepping inside one of the rooms, she couldn't enter at first because she could feel pain and unhappiness. She said, quote, "I cannot enter this room. It's too strong. There's a child beside me. Her little hand is clutching my trouser leg. I just cannot go into this room. She was separated from her parents. She wants to go home and see her family. Her desire haunts this place very strongly." So eventually Eiko managed to step into the room and she communicated with a little girl beside the fireplace. Her name is Annie. And she lost her favourite doll and she is heartbroken. So Annie said that she died during the sickness of 1645.
Oh, did we not, leave... I must jump the gun again. Sorry.
Yeah, I actually told you a little bit about this as well in last year's episode.
Yeah, right, go, sorry.
So she died during the sickness of 1645 and she was lonely without her doll. So Eiko actually left the close and went up to the Royal Mile and she bought Annie a doll. She brought it back to her and she said that the doll brought comfort to the child. And so as long as the doll remains, it is said that the room will never again be disturbed by her spirit. So obviously over the years, Annie's history has been researched, but no one has found a reference to her. But that doesn't mean that she doesn't exist.
Yeah.
The closest link was a child of someone called Jane Mackenzie recorded during the plague. This child is unnamed in the history books, so that could be Annie. It might be, it might not be. But ever since Eiko left the first doll, people from all over the world bring Annie dolls, toys and jewellery. So that room is just piled with toys.
Yeah.
Even people who work as first responders have left their badges as a mark of respect. There are badges from New York City Police Department,
oh, wow.
Newport Beach Police and numerous fire departments.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, that's it. I thought I had more. I'm done.
Hey.
Yeah. So that's Mary King's Close and Greyfriars Kirkyard.
Cool.
So if anybody is visiting Edinburgh...
Yep, there is a tour for Mary King's Close.
Yeah, well, it's called the real Mary King's Close. There's a website, so you can go on it.
Yeah, the website tells you all the different tours. So, like, the graveyard one of the Greyfriars Kirkyard is on that somewhere. And, you know, there's numerous different tours. There's, like, the vaults that we spoke about last year. Which is good. So there's, you know, if you are visiting Scotland, hopefully in the near future, with the... COVID still being around, then you might get a chance to come and definitely I do recommend going to do some of those tours. But obviously in the winter months are better because it's dark.
Yeah, it'd be more spooky, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know if they actually do the tours in the summer. They might not even do them in the summer. It
don't
might just be when it's darker nights because obviously the darkness brings the eeriness to it all, doesn't it? So
yeah, but if you're going to Mary King's Close, it's going to be dark anyway, isn't it? And the vaults and stuff like that because you're underground.
That's true. Yeah.
So maybe, I don't know. Anyway, we're not experts on Edinburgh tourism.
No, but definitely not. But yeah, so before we go, are you going to tell us your weird and wonderful happenings?
Well, yeah, you know how at the start of this episode, see, this is the thing I was going to tell you after I said, you know, that little thing about October, the veil. So because the veil is at its thinnest, that's when you can. Things might happen. Yeah. And that's what I was going to tell you, my weird things, so it kind of seems stupid to tell you now, but never mind. I think I've maybe got a ghostie. Because...
And you tell me this now?
While we're sitting in this room. Well, Laura already knows, but, for the listeners, my daughter has recently moved out, and so we have moved our podcast office into her room, into her old room. She still has a lot of stuff. She hasn't moved out properly. She's not sleeping here anymore, but she's still got a lot of her stuff here. So there was one day, I think it was last week or something, I can't remember. It was October. I think it was last week, and I was sitting at my desk, and she'd came in, and she was looking, she was coming in to get some bits and pieces, and she was on the floor, she was kneeling on the floor, looking for something in a bag, And as I said, I was across the other side of the room, sitting at my desk, and her PlayStation 5 just switched itself on.
Just on its own.
Just switched, and she just jumped and kind of looked as if to say, thinking that she'd maybe knelt on the remote.
Yeah.
And the remote is well, you can see where the remote is. It's on the chest of drawers next to the PlayStation. And it just it's never done that before. Obviously, it's a PlayStation 5, so it's not an old thing. Well, I don't know. It's nearly a year now, isn't it? Was it a year since PlayStation 5 came out?
Oh, maybe actually, yeah.
But yeah, it's not like it's an old kind of dodgy machine. You know, it's
new.
And yeah, that has never happened before. Neither of us. As I said, it was only the two of us that were in the room.
Yeah.
And it just switched on itself.
Freaky.
So I thought that was a bit spooky. And then, not that it happened in this room, but a couple of days ago, I was downstairs and me and John were having a dinner. So he was sitting in the living room, and I carried the plates through from the kitchen into the living room, and I just looked down on the floor because I could see something caught my eye, and I was like, "What's that on the floor?" And I picked up this tiny little, like a passport photo, but it's like it's really, you can get like the normal size passport photos, and then you can get like little ones. And it was a little passport photo of my daughter, who has just moved out, when she was, I don't know, maybe 12 years old or something like that.
Right.
Which I haven't seen that photo honestly, I have not seen that photo for years. I'd hoovered the day before, so it hadn't been there the day before, and there it was. And there it was. It just appeared. I've no idea where it came from, and why it's a photo of her. Like, she thinks that there's a ghost that's missing her or something like that. So maybe it's been here all along, but now that she's moved out, the ghost's actually missing her.
Maybe it was like a sign for her not to move out or something.
No, it didn't say that. She's not coming back.
No, it's our office now.
Yeah, this is our office now. Well, at the moment, it's just the desk and the laptop and everything just kind of stuck in the corner. Once she moves all her stuff out properly, it'll be better. But yeah, it was just a couple of, not spooky, but just kind of weird things that have happened, and with them being so close together as well.
Ooh, haunted house.
And then just not that long ago, today, remember when we were recording another episode?
Oh yeah, it was the back of the sticker came off of this.
Yeah, but it just kind of
it was just sitting on the desk there, and I just seen something like float down from the desk.
Yeah,
and that was like a little, like a sticky with a barcode on.
Yeah. From
my notebook, and that had come off, and I don't know how, because it wasn't like it was peeling or anything.
Yeah, exactly. So the sticker that you get a barcode on the back of a notebook, it wasn't peeling off, but we both saw it just float to the ground, didn't we?
Yeah.
So
scary stuff. Maybe.
Well, if it's her ghost, she can bloody well take the ghost with it. Go and follow it to her new house.
Exactly. Go away.
So there we go. That's it. So happy Halloween, everybody. Yes. I hope you're all enjoying your day and doing spooky things.
Having a party, or if you've got kids, taking them trick-or-treating.
Yeah. So hopefully everybody's having fun. I will be sitting in the house with the lights off. The door locked, not answering it.
So will I be after a while. I'll take my daughter to a couple of houses, and then I'll be like, right, that's us in. Lights are off.
We don't actually get that many trick-or-treaters, and I do think, I actually think my house looks a bit scary, because my house is sort of up on a hill.
Yeah.
So you have to walk up the steps to get to my house. And in the darkness, when there's no lights or anything on, I think it looks quite creepy. I call it the house on Haunted Hill. Because I think it looks quite creepy at night time. Fine during the day, but at night time I think it looks a bit creepy, so I don't know.
I don't know how my street, because obviously, I mean, it is my second Halloween in this house, but we literally moved our stuff in on Halloween last year. And of course, with lockdown and stuff, nobody was trick-or-treating.
Yeah.
So I don't actually know, because my old street, I never used to get anybody. So I don't know what this one, there's a lot more kids in this street, so...
Yeah, well, you have random little girls knocking at your door, don't you?
Yeah. Which I found out more information about that, because the woman that does my eyebrows lives in my street, and I was telling her about it. She's like, oh yeah, she's like, those girls live across the road, and they come to my house and gave me something, and they just like do it randomly, and I'm like, oh, okay. So you've got two little girls in your street that go knocking on people's door when it's not Halloween. Yeah. So they're probably gonna knock your door on Halloween then. Well, my door will be locked and locked. Anyway. Yeah. So thanks for listening, everybody. If you want to follow us on social media, our information is in the show notes. If you want to join our
Patreon. It's patreon.com/CrimeDivers, and you get two bonus episodes a month, ad-free episodes, early access episodes. Go and check it out.
Yeah. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe, rate, review.
Thanks for listening. Bye.